So, can anyone in the audience tell me what the word education means? I guarantee you it means the opposite to what at least 90% of you think it means. Anyone here know any Latin? The word education does not mean to fill you up with stuff. It does not mean to beat stuff into you. It actually means, it comes from, I don't have very good Latin pronunciation, it comes from educare, which means to draw out from within. So the aim of education isn't to fill you up with stuff, it's to help you know yourself, and it's to help you reason for yourself. So the aim of my talk tonight is not to get you to agree with anything I say. I don't really mind if you agree or not. But I do want you to listen to what I say and then think about it for yourself. I think you might be kind of quite interested as well in what the word school means. So school is the best environment for education, but the meaning of school has changed since its original meaning. So in ancient Greece, the word schole actually meant the word leisure. So if you translate school into English, it means the word leisure. That's probably confusing. A lot of people are thinking, is that not the place where they beat you and so all that kind of stuff? No, in ancient Greece, there was two words for leisure, or there was two kind of leisure. So there was a form of leisure that allows you to pursue pleasure, and there was a form of leisure that allows you to think about things in a form of tranquility with no real destructive disturbances and so on. So school actually means a form of like a nice tranquil environment where you can think for yourself. So in a very strange way, the next 20 minutes you might actually regard as school time. So in terms of the different perspectives on risk, I'm going to start off with probably the boring one, which is the relatively boring one, which is the academic perspective. So if you're a financial economist, if you're an actuary, if you're studying risk in college, typically what academics do is that they divide people up into three different types of people. So there's risk-averse people, there's risk-loving people, and there is risk-neutral people. So the risk-averse people are the kind of cautious people. If they were given a choice of a bet, so heads, you win 100 euros, tails, you lose 100 euros. Most people would probably say no to that bet, and that means they're probably somewhat risk-averse. I'd say about 80 and 90% of the people in the room are probably risk-averse. Some people, on the other hand, like to take a little bit of risk, and if I gave them a choice, they might have, heads, you win 100 euros, tails, you lose 100 euros. They might feel lucky or something like that, or want to take the risk, and they're the risk-loving people. And then there's also the risk-neutral people, and these are people who are, well, if they're given the choice between the bet, they go, well, I'll take it or don't want to take it. I'm not really too concerned. So I guess the obvious question that you might be thinking, okay, what is the best way to be if you want to be good at taking risk? So is it better off being cautious, or is it better off taking lots of risk, or is it better off being neutral? That's probably something people have thought before. So some people are, you're better off being a bit safe, better off safe than sorry. You don't want to be taking reckless risk as well, on the other hand. But probably not many of you will actually get that the best answer is actually being risk neutral. There's a lot of academic studies that have supported basically that the risk neutral people, all the wealthiest people in the world, are mostly risk neutral. Why is that? Well, I'm going to let a poet explain the answer to you. So I could have picked quite a few poets or even some philosophers as well to kind of answer this. So the perspective from poetry is that of John Keats. The reason why I picked John Keats is that he spent a lot of time thinking, okay, you've got people like Newton, Isaac Newton did loads of great stuff in science. How come he did so much great stuff and loads of other people have tried and they weren't as good as Newton? How come loads of people tried to write plays and kind of literature and they're not as good as Shakespeare? What was so good about Shakespeare? Well, Keats thought about these stuff a lot, these kind of things, and he was walking along, and as he wrote in a famous letter, he said, "At once it struck me what went to form a man or a woman of achievement. I mean negative capability. That is, when a man or a woman is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. So if you can do lots of reasonings, take on lots of facts, be in a lot of mystery, probably in a very risky situation, and you don't get an irritable reaction, that's probably a good sign. So in more modern phraseology, what we're basically saying here is if you have a very narrow comfort zone, that's probably going to be bad for taking risk. If you have a very, very wide comfort zone, that's probably likely to be good for taking risk. I spent about 7 or 8 years working as either an investment manager or a trader and so on. I finished up as Head of Quantitative Trading in Bank of Ireland Global Markets a number of years ago. So what I'm going to do is briefly discuss the perspective of risk from a trader's perspective. So this is quite, there's more to it than just the academic perspective, and I think the best way to explain it is just in the form of an example. So I'm part of the Bloomberg survey of economists. So tomorrow, I've done some work on it today, and I'll be doing some work tomorrow. So tomorrow, about lunchtime, I have to submit an economic estimate to Bloomberg for what I think the unemployment rate will be when it's released in the United States is on Friday lunchtime. So there's about me and another 80 economists around the world who they ask, and then they average all the results, and then they say the economists are expecting X, Y, and Z. So suppose, for example, tomorrow I do my work, and then my informed opinion is actually that, okay, I could be wrong, but my informed opinion is that there's a high likelihood that the unemployment rate in the US is probably going to fall more than the other economists expect, and that the US economy has actually performed much better than expected over the last month. If that happens, what will probably happen is the stock market will go up, and it could actually go up a lot. So that puts me then in the situation where I have some information, I've done some work, I've worked hard at something, I've thought about the kind of risk of certain things happening, I've done some analysis, and then I say to myself, okay, should I buy shares? What's the risk there? Well, from a very simple perspective, a simplistic perspective, there's a risk if I buy shares, there's a risk that the shares will fall and I'll lose money. But that's a very, very simplistic perspective, and it's not the perspective of a trader. So the problem is, as some of you will probably realize as well, is that if I do nothing, so suppose I do my work tomorrow, I guess something's going to happen, and I don't bet on it. And then suppose the actual result is exactly what I think it was. So suppose the number is, the unemployment rate falls more than expected, the stock market goes up. I'll then spend most of Friday afternoon and evening and the weekend going, shit. I should have bet on that, and I'm going to feel a bit kind of crap over the weekend. Damn it, and so on. So what the trader will do, or what I used to do, was quite simply say to myself, okay, how will I feel at the weekend if I do nothing? I'm going to feel bad. How much am I prepared to pay in order to not feel that? So I might say, okay, I'm not going to feel kind of great, so I'm prepared to lose 300 euros instead of feeling bad over the weekend. And then what I will do is I will buy shares in such a way where the maximum amount of money I can lose is 300 euros. Once I've done that, then I've basically minimized my regret risk, and then I almost don't really care what happens. Realistically speaking, if I bet in such a way on Friday, my risk is kind of gone. And I've managed it quite well. And then I don't have any kind of irritable reactions. I'm kind of feeling kind of happy-ish either way. And anyway, so that's a trader's perspective. Okay, so I kind of finished up doing that a good few years ago, and been working in academia and doing kind of other things since then. Having worked as a trader, though, I found the psychology of risk very, 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 very interesting, and that's my kind of main area of research at the moment. So about 4 years ago or so, I got some funding to produce the first risk intelligence test. So this is a psychological test that can assess how good someone is at taking risk and at risk management, which is kind of the same thing as taking risk. And what the research found was that there were certain perspectives that certain people had, and those perspectives were more in line with someone who was good at taking risk. And how far away you were from that perspective was probably an indication of how good you are at risk. So effectively, the risk intelligence test has about 50 questions in it, and they ask you a series of questions, and from that they can give you, or it can give you kind of a quantitative score of how good you are or not so good at risk, and also what you can do as well to improve at risk. Okay, so I've got one of those questions up here for you to have a think about. So which do you agree with most? So honestly. So A, there is no freedom without responsibility. B, I accept my responsibilities prudently. C, it would be great to have a few less responsibilities so I can enjoy life more. Or D, I'd love to win the lottery and be completely free. Okay, the way this question is phrased, it's phrased in such a way that roughly a quarter of you will answer A, a quarter will answer B, a quarter will answer C, and a quarter will answer D. You're not going to like my next few comments. Okay, so there's actually there's only one answer there which is consistent with somebody who is good at taking risk. And this is going to be quite a controversial point tonight, so I hope there's no eggs and kind of tomatoes in the room. So there's only one answer there, and that's actually A, that there's no freedom without responsibility. Why is that the only answer? Well, it relates to the way we define freedom. So the way people's understanding of freedom, I think, is a little bit, I'm not so sure about, because freedom is actually the opportunity to progress. It's the opportunity to be yourself, to be everything you can be, to be creative, to do something to improve yourself. It's not the freedom, or it's not to be allowed to be insolent, to be immature, to be egotistic, to be regressive. And if you want to progress, if you want to do something cool, you kind of have to be responsible about it. Otherwise, it probably won't work out. So again, probably quite an unusual perspective on freedom, but hopefully something to, again, I'm not asking you to agree with me, I'm asking you to think about it for yourself. Next up is the philosophy perspective. So what I've done is I've just, there's a huge, big, massive book by Immanuel Kant called The Critique of Pure Reason. And what I've done is I've just taken small bits out of it. I guess the bits that I have up here are more to follow on what I was saying earlier on about education, thinking for yourself, and all that kind of stuff. So Immanuel Kant was kind of asking himself, okay, what does it mean to be enlightened? So suppose you come across someone who you reckon, that guy is kind of enlightened, or maybe you want to be enlightened so you can do all these cool things and you can make all this money and do all this kind of stuff and do all this cool stuff. Well, according to Immanuel Kant, enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-incurred immaturity. Immaturity, from Immanuel Kant's perspective, is the inability to use one's own understanding without the guidance of another. This immaturity is self-incurred if its cause is not lack of understanding, but a lack of resolution and courage to use it without the guidance of another. So the motto of enlightenment, according to Kant, is dare to be wise, have courage to use your own understanding. He goes on to say then, laziness and cowardice are the reasons why such a large proportion of men and women, even when nature has long emancipated them from alien influence, as in the influence from other people, they nevertheless gladly remain immature for life. For the same reasons, it's all too easy for others to set themselves up as the people who look after them or that kind of thing. It is so convenient to be immature. If I have a book to have understanding in place of me, if I have a spiritual advisor to have a conscience for me, if I have a medical physician to tell me what to eat, I need not make any efforts at all. I need not think as long as I can pay other people to do that for me. So he then goes on again after a while and he says, for enlightenment of this kind, all that is needed is freedom. And the freedom in question is the most innocuous form of all. And it's freedom to make public use of one's reason in all matters. But I hear on all sides cry, don't argue. The officer said, don't argue, go on parade, do what everyone else does. So the reason why I put up that perspective is to just, again, to encourage you to think for yourself. I'm not asking you to agree with me, but let this evening be kind of some school time. Okay, so I'm going to finish off with three what you might call classical perspectives on risk. So three very famous quotations on risk, I guess you could say. So the first is from politics. So this is an excerpt from The Prince by Machiavelli. And he seems to kind of back up a lot of the stuff that I've been saying. So he said, all courses of action are risky. So prudence, which is looking after yourself, is not in avoiding risk and things that can go wrong. That's impossible. But calculating risk and acting decisively. So make mistakes of ambition, not mistakes of sloth, laziness. Develop the strength to do bold things, not the strength to suffer. That's much easier said than done, but that's a very famous piece of advice. The next one is kind of similar, but probably brings out a few other nuances and stuff. So it's a few excerpts from the famous funeral oration of Pericles. Again, this is from ancient Athens, where Pericles is effectively lauding the kind of the great things that the Athenians did. So he said, our love of things of the mind does not make us soft. We are capable at the same time of taking risks and of estimating them beforehand. Others, on the other hand, are brave out of ignorance, and when they stop to think, they begin to fear. So the man or woman who can most truly be accounted brave is he or she who best knows the meaning of what is sweet in life and terrible and goes out undeterred to meet what is to come. So what Pericles is effectively saying here is that there are two elements to taking risk well and to doing things well. One is thinking about them, estimating them, putting a lot of thought into them, and the other is acting on them. So some people can be really good at thinking about them and doing all the calculations, but they don't really act afterwards. Other people don't really think too much, and they do a lot of acting. And the best thing to do is to do the two of them well. But that's very, very easier said than done. And then finally, the historical perspective. So the famous, or the first ever historian, they say. So Herodotus said, looking back at history, and so on, he said all the great things are won by great risks. My perspective is that I would encourage you to make friends with risk, not to see risk as your enemy. I would encourage you to embrace risk, even though embracing risk might actually be a little bit traumatic sometimes. It probably won't be the most enjoyable experience in one way. It won't be pursuing pleasure. But embracing risk, if you do it, you're probably likely to thrive. I suppose what I'd also say is that if you do make risk your friend rather than your enemy, and if you do embrace risk, I'm pretty sure after a while you'll actually consider risk to be one of your best friends rather than one of your enemies. So I'll finish up on that tonight. So I'm delighted I didn't get any eggs and tomatoes and stuff. So thank you all for your attention, and I'll probably be chatting to you later on again. So great, thanks.